Hello, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a really critical piece of documentation regarding companies' AI core IT solutions. Specifically, we're taking a close look at their agent inventory and a frankly fascinating structural concept called the Hermes architecture setup. So I invite you to settle in as we take a measured, thoughtful look at how modern digital infrastructure is designed to solve some of the absolute most persistent challenges in tech today.
Okay, let's dive right into this. How exactly do we balance flexibility with cost? I want you to take a moment and just let that question resonate because it is literally the central tension of modern IT infrastructure. Usually, if you want a system to be highly adaptable to individual user needs, well, it costs a premium. And on the flip side, if you want to aggressively control costs, you typically have to lock the system down, which restricts what the user can actually do. It's a classic tug of war. And let's be honest, usually IT budgets end up pulling the hardest, right? Leaving users with rigid lockdown software that is just incredibly frustrating to use.
Well, the source documentation we're looking at presents a really clever structural answer to this exact tension, and it's called the Hermes architecture setup. Now, this isn't just a minor feature or some little add-on. It's actually the underlying logic of how company approaches their AI core IT solutions as a whole.
So let's define exactly what this means in the context of companies' ecosystem. The architecture setup is the foundational framework. It's basically the essential scaffolding within their AI core IT solutions. And its primary purpose? To deploy and manage what they refer to as agent inventories. You can think of it as the master blueprint. It dictates exactly how individual digital agents are organized, stored, and ultimately utilized within the much broader system.
Now, this architecture hinges entirely on three core pillars. First, we have the overarching Hermes architecture setup itself, and that's flanked by its two primary objectives. On one side, we have user flexibility, and on the other, cost effectiveness. Every single technical decision within this framework stems from the need to satisfy these specific operational goals.
Let's isolate that first objective for a second, user flexibility. We need to examine what that actually looks like when you apply it to a real-world IT environment, because fundamentally, an architecture is only as good as the experience it provides the end user.
To do that, let's meet Ruth. To truly understand an abstract concept like user flexibility, it always helps to ground it in a relatable operational reality. So Ruth represents our end user operating within companies' AI core IT solutions. Rather than just clicking a standard set of static buttons, she has highly specific data analysis tasks. She has unique workflow preferences for generating her reports, and she deals with dynamic project requirements that shift dramatically from week to week.
The documentation makes a really fascinating point here. By highlighting user flexibility as a standalone concept within the Hermes architecture, it tells us that the system is deliberately designed around adapting to the specific operational needs of users exactly like Ruth. It means the architecture absolutely doesn't force Ruth into a rigid, one-size-fits-all box. Instead, the framework of the agent inventory is meant to bend and mold to actually facilitate her ideal way of working.
But right here is where we arrive back at our fundamental tension. On one side, we have user flexibility. That's Ruth's need for a highly adaptable, responsive system. On the other side, we have cost effectiveness, which is the overarching need for company to manage its resources efficiently and prevent ballooning operational expenses. In traditional setups, these two forces are in constant competition with each other. But what the source documentation outlines is that the Hermes setup is strategically designed to prevent them from competing with one another entirely.
The crucial takeaway here is that the source text doesn't treat these as an either-or scenario. It explicitly binds them together, user flexibility and cost effectiveness. In the context of this specific AI core IT solution, they go hand in hand. The architecture actually dictates that you cannot fully achieve the intended design without realizing both outcomes simultaneously. They are parallel mandates.
So, how in the world is that dual mandate actually achieved? Well, that brings us to the specific end-user mechanism that makes this entire balancing act possible. According to the documentation, the operational key to unlocking the architecture is something called the Hermes profile.
The Hermes profile is the exact tool used to bridge the gap between the macro architecture and the individual user. Think of it like a set of perfectly optimized parameters. By utilizing a specific Hermes profile, Ruth is granted the precise flexibility she requires from the agent inventory to manage her specific workflow effectively. However, because her flexibility is administered exclusively through this defined profile structure rather than just as open-ended access, the underlying system is able to keep companies' broader computing and deployment costs strictly managed. The profile essentially is the translator. It sits right between Ruth's need for freedom and the system's need for control.
Okay, let's summarize the logical flow of the concepts we've explored from the source text. It operates in 3 distinct sequential steps. First, you deploy the foundational Hermes architecture setup within the AI core IT solutions. Second, you assign the specific Hermes profile to interact with the agent inventory. And step 3, as a direct result of those first 2 steps, you achieve that highly coveted dual state of both user flexibility and cost effectiveness. It is a very clear top-down execution from the macro architecture straight down to the micro profile.
Which leaves us with this final thought to chew on. If this dual mandate approach is successful, how will the Hermes profile shape the future of AI IT solutions for users like Ruth? I mean, if we no longer have to sacrifice operational budgets just to grant users the freedom they need to innovate, the potential for growth is absolutely immense. It fundamentally changes the expectations we place on our digital infrastructure. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning how the architectures around you are designed to balance the scales.